This medal has been directed to empower 1,000 persons with disabilities in each state in the next 12 months.
We now start hearing the shoot of gun.
Whatever I've done.
Every public policy has winners and losers, and some will not be very happy with you, while others, usually the silent majority, will be quite happy.
Increase the reach of your events or business services. To advertise on Plus TV Africa, please call 0906 000 5719 or 0909 040 8408, or send an email to marketing@PlusTvAfrica.com. Plus TV Africa. Big stories live here.
Hello and welcome to What Are You Saying? #Ways, where we talk about topics in the news as it affects us all. I am Osayua Mesale, and today is a very special day. There's someone I usually have behind the scene, always doing all the magic. So today she's going to be co-anchoring with me. Hi, Omolola. When you see me praising, what's it called? She's like, I call her my guardian angel. She's an amazing, amazing person. Like she thinks end to end. When you see someone doing something holistically, she is the one. I go to sleep these days because Omolola is here, and she's live to the rescue.
Oh wow, thanks Uwa.
How are you, Omolola?
I'm fine.
How does it feel being in front of the camera?
I'm nervous.
I can tell.
But I'm good.
I can tell, but you're good. You're good. You're always doing well, so you are doing well.
Thank you.
So how's your week been? How's the week been for you?
My week has been good. Ramadan started on Saturday, so I had to adjust a bit, adjust my diet, adjust to working, not being able to drink water, not being able to eat. But after the first few days, I overslept one day. And woke up really late and missed Sahu, but I've adjusted, so my week has been good. It's not been as difficult as I thought it would be, so it's been really good. Work wasn't so stressful. My colleagues are very compassionate people, so they know not to stress me too much because everywhere is hot.
Well, it's actually quite interesting. Tell me a bit about this lifestyle that you decided to take on, because you're supposed to be Muslim, right? But you are trying to chart your own path.
Yes.
Why?
I'm trying to find myself. I'm trying to find my path. Technically I am a Muslim, but I'm trying to do things a little bit differently, just a little bit, just trying to navigate my way. But Ramadan is very special to me because of the lessons, the spirituality. You get to connect, you get to sync with you get to go to the state of Zen, sync with your inner,
Okay.
Don't let me go too deep into it. But yeah, it's really special to me, and even if everything else might be a bit dodgy based on modern Muslim.
I was going to ask you that, how are your people coping? Because you do not look like the typical Muslim.
I know, we get that a lot in my family. Everyone from my brothers to my sisters. Like, anytime we tell them Muslims, they don't believe. It's like, hey, so you don't look like a Muslim. I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to have like...
Yeah, because there's an idea that you're supposed to look in a certain way, you know, that shows that you're pious, you know, that kind of a thing.
Well, that doesn't happen here.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't need to show it. It's just about who you are inside, not really what you're showing the world.
All right, so we have an interesting conversation, and I have a lovely guest. I cannot wait for you to meet her. We're discussing HR today, right? And here's what we found as today's quote. Train people well enough so they can leave. Treat them well enough so they don't want to leave. This is from Sir Richard Branson. All right, so the lifeblood of any organization is its people. Engaged employees are more productive and can make a positive impact on a business bottom line. Now, to that end, the HR department is there as a liaison between the organizations and employees to make sure that employees are kept abreast of relevant information and that they, in turn, are represented by the HR team in any decision that may impact them. So, Olutoyin Williams Edem is here to discuss the role of HR in fostering a healthy workplace. That's the conversation. But first, let's take a break to see what we found in the news. Now, you are still watching WAY's National Zoo Lovers Day, celebrated on April 8th in the U.S., brings all the zoo animals enthusiasts together to celebrate this significant day. Now, do you know how many animals were saved by zoos from going into extinction? Yes, zoos are more than just conservation sites for endangered species. They also provide educational, research, and entertainment purpose. Now, we can trace the history of zoo back to 4000 BC. Now, if you love animals, then this holiday is just for you. Visit a zoo nearby to find out about your favorite animals. You can also ask to volunteer at a zoo. Now, in the 7th century BC, the Greek had the habit of caging animals. So Alexander the Great sent many animals caught on his military expedition to Greece. Now, the earlier Egyptian and Asian zoo were kept mainly for public visitors and secondarily used for research purposes. During the 4th century BC, the Greeks were more concerned with the research and experiment of captivated animals. The Romans had two different animal collections for arena and research objectives. So, that's quite a history. You know, it's so interesting that we are talking about zoo. There are some zoos you shouldn't volunteer or visit. There's one zoo I've heard, I've not been there, but there's a zoo in Ibadan. They say if you see the lion, it looks like a goat. The lion looks like a goat because the lion is suffering from malnutrition. But we have a fantastic zoo in Lagos here. I think Omu Resort. I've been there once. Yeah, once I think, or twice, I can't remember now. But they have a very interesting species of hyena. You know, usually when you see the hyenas, they are usually spotted. But they have a particular hyena that is striped.
Oh, wow.
So that's a rare species. So whenever you go there, try to look out for that. I mean, they are doing well. They have quite a few animals at that zoo at the Omu Resort.
Do you know I've never been to a zoo?
Really? You should visit Omu Resort then.
I will. But I used to have this conception that animals should never be caged until I read this, until I saw this today. I used to feel like, I mean, let's be free. But then again,
some were actually kept to actually preserve them from going into
and
extinction.
for research purposes. So I guess that
makes
makes sense.
They also study animals.
But then think of the animals, like for instance, the lion in Ibadan now. The lion didn't ask. The lion
so you
didn't
know
ask
what? Then
for that.
you don't imagine the root shock I had when I went to the London Zoo. When I saw the size of the lion. You know how you're watching TV. TV doesn't really tell what it is. When I saw the size of the lion, that's when I now know that that's why they call it the king of the jungle. Don't go close. You know, the size of the lion was I said I could not be, like, it was like a root shock to me. You know, so I mean, when you hear things like that, sometimes again, that's why I like exposure. It helps, you know, for you to see things. So
I mean, what are the chances that you run into a lion in Lagos?
It not go happen.
It won't. So I guess it has its advantages.
It does.
It's good
and
the bad. So we just have to find
it does. Then
balance.
I think I visited Kenya, the Wildlife Conservation Park in Kenya as well. Beautiful.
I'm taking
I
notes.
saw giraffes. I saw all the big five. I saw them. So amazing. So I mean, for that, I like that one because that one is not really a zoo.
They're in their own
natural. So, but it's just that they have people, you know, watching it, because they can also use that to also study them as well, as opposed to putting them in cages. I get you. All right. So, what did you find for us in the news, Omolola?
All right. So, what did I find in the news? Well, what I found is not necessarily good news, but I'm just going to read it out. It was the bridge burning that happened, the burning that happened in, one second.
Akpomo, right?
Do you know, I was struggling to remember the pronunciation of that name.
Akpomo.
The Akpomo Bridge fire disaster. So, the recent fire outbreak that ravaged the popular Akpomo Underbridge market in Lagos Island was not an isolated incident. Luckily, no lives were reported lost, but goods worth millions of nairas were destroyed. And the bridge, having been weakened by fire, has been inevitably shut down to prevent more tragedy. Sadly, the disaster was preventable since the traders occupied the place illegally in the first place, as the bridge was not a market in the real sense of it. Government officials, both Lagos and the federal, must share in the blame for the incident, having failed or neglected to prevent the unlawful occupation of the space under the bridge. As it were, taxpayers will be forced to cough up money to carry out necessary repairs on the affected parts of the bridge. A sad development in these austere times when little funds are chasing several projects and material costs are huge due to galloping inflation. So it says now that the bridge has been burnt, the federal government wants to carry out integrity tests. It is expected that this should be done promptly without delay, considering the heavy traffic that goes through the bridge corridor. It should not be treated with levity. The way the airport link bridge at Toyota bus stop was treated, it nearly took 1 year to repair. It nearly took 1 year to repair one pillar that was damaged after it was similarly burnt by fire caused by a tanker accident. The Akpomo Bridge should be repaired with dispatch, while the Lagos State government and federal highway authorities ensure that such incidents do not reoccur.
Well, interesting. I saw a story I was going to take today, but I just said, they say Lagos moves to relocate traders affected by the Akpomo Bridge. I'll just leave it there. Well, my story, I just wanted to say that. My story, because that's like the norm, right? There's a fire in the market, the next thing you're moving, relocating is the normal thing. I think they should get creative with the kinds of, things that they do. So my story is actually quite interesting. It's taken from the Guardian paper. I actually have two stories I quickly want to report. ADC to sponsor 300 young persons for reps in 2023. So the Alliance for Democracy, the African Democratic Congress rather, says they want to sponsor about 300 people. And this was said by their National Director of Communications and Programs, right? They said that according to the report, they will be shortlisted, screened, selected, and sponsored. About 300 youths with the capacity and credibility. So they are looking for three things: capacity, credibility, and character. You know, they can build on. And they said that in their party, they have allocated about 35%, for youth, women, and persons living with disability. So these people that when they are selected, they will be given free forms. We know how expensive. I mean, governorship form are here in Lagos about 20 million. Some say 23 million or 22 million. So free forms, they will be given them. And one of the biggest things they are also looking out for is that you must have that grassroots engagement and experience, right? You must be known in your locality. You must have that credibility to say, okay, you know what, if they invest in you, your candidacy, you would go far, because they just don't want to pick out anybody. And how they intend to raise these funds, they are looking at NGOs, some organizations, people to come together, and the target is to raise about 10 billion. Oh, wow. Right? When they raise 10 billion, and they'll be able to push this agenda to sponsor about 300 people. So no how. Some people will come back with a win. And I think the hashtag is about, it's called ADC New Tribe. So they're creating a new tribe,
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I now saw a very interesting story. While ADC is trying to sponsor youth to say that they want them to push for, go for political offices, I saw our Nobel laureate, Wole Soyinka. He has faulted the youth, saying that their inability to stake a claim in the so he has faulted the youth, and he said that the youth of this nation don't seem to want to take their destinies in their own hands. And he said they failed because he was part of the group that attempted to get a young candidate, a youth, in 2019, and it failed. And he doesn't even see any end in sight right now, that any youth would emerge as a candidate for the 2023 general elections, right? So he says he wants to take a French leave of the elections and just watch the results, right? So it's very likely that I would do it, that all I would do is to take a French leave. I just want to say that for the longest of time, people like Wole Soyinka, I respect his person, but it's just, for me, it's a lot of talk. Why I took this story is to compare these two stories. One person has said, you know what, if I see credibility, if I see anything, we're going to back it with money. So you cannot just tell people that they're not ready to take their destinies into their hands. Politics is expensive. Politics is not a cheap venture, right? So if you're saying that Nigerian youth are not ready, how much money have you invested outside of talking, outside of time and all of that, outside of how much have you invested in ensuring that, okay, you know what, this one, I know this candidate will support you, will take you all the way through, like what this ADC party is already thinking of doing. We need to see more people, right, putting their money where their mouth is. Not just, it's a nice thing to say we're not ready, we're not, but I've seen so many young people, especially this 2023 elections. I've seen a 23-year-old, right? He's going to be 24, I think, when it's time for him to run, or 25. I've seen 23-year-olds. I have seen 32-year-olds. I've seen all ages, young people under 40, most of them coming out. Today I met a young girl and we're bringing her on the show. She's running this is her second time running for a State House of Assembly in Lagos State. Very young girl.
So a lot is happening.
So a lot is happening with young people. So I just want Professor Wole Soyinka to understand that it's beyond just saying that we do not want to take. We want to take our destinies in our own hands. We want to push for these things, but we also need a lot of finance. So what we need for you to do is use your goodwill, your credibility, raise funds. Let us start to see 100 billion being raised, 10 billion being raised, and we're saying, okay, you know what, we're pushing you all the way to the end. That's what we want to see.
When I saw this story, the first thing that came to mind was, okay, I saw a connection between the two stories, because when he said we're not ready to take our destinies into our own hands, because let's not lie, some youths, the conception we have about politics is very
screwed.
For the lack of a better word, I will use that word, because it's one or two things. It's either you think that, I remember when I was younger and I had mentioned, I want to be a politician. I remember my brother told me, they will kill you. And I was just like, okay, I don't want to die. Or it's either they will kill you, they won't give you the chance to do it, or you're just going there for the money. So not a lot of people actually have that pure intention. And even those that have the pure intention, something comes along the way.
My own is that support the talking with the money, that's all. Because politics requires money, especially in this country. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. All right, so we'll take a break now. When we return from the break, we're discussing HR and how we can use HR to foster a healthy work environment. That's the conversation. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This medal has been directed to empower 1,000 persons with disabilities in each state in the next 12 months.
We now start sharing the shoot of gun.
Whatever I've done.
Every public policy has winners and losers, and some will not be very happy with you, while others, usually the silent majority, will be quite happy.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the barbing, I pay my rent. On the barbing, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and the heat of the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
I will do everything to take Lagos out of the national grid.
How can we have peace without justice?
Plus Politics. It's not just another political conversation, it's about keeping you in the know. Relevant interviews, asking the tough questions to those that matter. Get the answers you need. Does it mean that the people who were injured, people who were shot at, those who were involved in that stampede are not going to get justice?
It is unfortunate, it is sad that we have a government of deaf and dumb.
Analysis from top experts.
The last election was not really an election.
We feel that Obasanjo has a very special place in his heart for hating Ijaw people.
I think it really boils down to two things. One, trust and accountability.
Plus Politics, every weeknight at 7 p.m. on Plus TV Africa.
Thanks for staying with us. Now, one of the major responsibilities all companies should fulfill is to ensure their employees are trained well enough to do their job. Employees who don't feel like they've had the proper training are the quickest to disengage and look for something new. Every employee should feel confident in their ability to do what's been asked of them, and it's the company's responsibility to set them up for success. The other major responsibility every company should fulfill is to treat their employees with kindness and respect. Treat them so well that they never want to leave. Employees who feel this way are fiercely loyal, become brand ambassadors, refer friends, and save you the time and money that you would have used to spend to hire a replacement. Now, train people, treat them well, happiness and productivity will definitely follow. So we're asking a question: what do you think the role of HR what the role of HR is in fostering a healthy workplace? That's the conversation for tonight. Now, please let us hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-8663. You can also tweet at us at WaysShowAfrica1 with the hashtag WaysShow. All right, so Omolola, before I bring in our guest in like a minute or two, I'd like to just, hear your thoughts on the role of HR. Remember last week, or was it last week or whatever, some weeks ago, there was so many drama on Twitter. But, I like to think solutions. So instead of just bickering and talking and complaining, why don't we see things from a holistic point of view? By the way, this is my conversation. What I just read now is very one-sided because we did not say the role of the employee. We were just talking employer, but it's fine. But what do you think? What are your thoughts on, how you think HR can help in fostering a very healthy workplace?
Okay. So I'm going to come. When I first saw this topic today, I was like, And I say, because I haven't really had the best experience with HR. And not in the sense that, it was a terrible experience. It's more of in line of silence. Or that's what I felt. Or I always had the feeling like HR in most companies are not really accessible. You feel like you can't reach out to them because you're like, these guys are working for the company. So whose side are they really on? So if I were to give my opinion on HR, I mean, I'm sure they are doing their jobs. I'm sure there's a lot that is happening in that space. But from my own personal experience, I've not had the best experience with HR. I've not had any experience with HR. I've never had a need to go to HR because, I never felt safe with HR, so to speak. So that's my direction on this conversation. I'm open to,
Yeah, that's why we have the experts.
That's why we are here.
I'm not here to even answer that question. But it's interesting you say that whose side are they really on? Really, because it just occurred to me that they have a tough job. Let me bring in our guest, because even me, I don't have answer to that question. Olutoyin Williams Edem is a senior human resource management professional with over 14 years of experience in human resource management. She has extensive expertise in human resource strategy, people and organizational development, people management, leadership, culture, and capability development. Now, she is the founder and the lead consultant at the People Impact Company, a prime human resource consulting firm dedicated to improving talent management practices for small and medium enterprises with a core focus on SME CEO leadership capacity development. Now, Olutoyin is a BDSP, a life and career coach, and a member of the John Maxwell team certified to coach, train, and speak. She's also a Googly Launchpad mentor, that's in Lagos, a consultant and a senior mentor with FCMB. She Ventures program. Now, she is an alumni of the Faith Foundation AEP program, an alumna of the Microsoft Accelerate Lab, and a mentee of Cherry Blair Foundation. She is recognized. She is a recognized volunteer, mentor, and counselor with the Knowledge Exchange Center. Are we not honored to have her with us? And she's joined us live in studio. Thank you so much. She has such an amiable personality, by the way. Let me add that, even though it was not there. Thank you so much for joining us, Toyin.
Good evening, Uwa. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we're excited. It's been a long call. We've been trying to get you.
It has. And I apologize. My schedule has been nothing short of crazy.
I said your job is not easy. You know, when Omolola just said this thing, it just hit me. You know, it has not hit me before. Like, really, where should they belong, you know? So I mean, this conversation, of course, it came off of the back of, but I don't like to dwell on negativity.
Sure.
I try to think solution, right?
Sure.
If everybody has clarity and you have knowledge of what should be done, it's easier to manage expectations and manage when you see situations, you'll be able to find some balance to be able to deal with those situations.
Absolutely.
I mean, everybody knows what trended on Twitter. We don't need to mention it, but you know, it just brought to light that a lot of people are actually in a very toxic work environment, right? And I just felt like, I think the HR department of every company, whether small, medium, large, or whatever it is, has a very, very vital role in, you know, understanding the need of the person they are employing and relating that need to the employer, and understanding the employer's expectation, and yes, it has to be balanced, and relating that expectation to the employee, right? So how easy is your job?
My job is extremely exciting for me. I love people. I love people. I genuinely love people. I want people to grow and develop. So for me, it's what I love to do. If I wasn't being paid, I'll do it. But please, guys, do pay me. If I wasn't paid, I'll do it. But now I think let's take it from what exactly is the role of human resources. And I'm just going to give us a bit of a background, because I think it's really important that we set the right foundation. Now, different organizations, depending on where they are in their phase of growth, would require different things from human resources. Organizations generally have maybe 4 phases of growth. So you have, when you're in startup phase, you're in growth phase, you're mature, and then you go into decline, or you relaunch. Now, for those 4 phases of organizational growth, you have different requirements of the HR unit. You need them to just hire and fire. And then it's also dependent on the size of the organization. If you have a very small business, it doesn't even make sense for them to hire a full-time HR person. So that kind of business will look at finding a third-party consultant who can come in and help them on a need basis. Now, another factor to consider is, how is the organization set up? Is the organization set up as a sole proprietor, where you have only one person, aka one-man business? Or is the organization set up as a proper corporation, where you have people on board, you have people directing the business, and it's just not one person's decision as to how things are run? You see those 3 different factors: the phase of the organization in their growth,
the size of the
organization, and the way the organization sets up, demands different requirements from human resources. And if you're an HR practitioner in any of those organizations at those different times, you're going to have a different set of things to address. So now let's go back to that general question around what's HR's part in fostering a healthy workplace. To be quite honest, it's not easy. You're balancing the needs of both the employee and the employer. How do you maintain that balance, knowing that there are organizational objectives to be met?
Keep that neutrality.
Keep that neutrality, and then we're here to make money. This is not a non-profit. And of course, there should be some things guiding us. So there are competencies that HR people should have. And one of those competencies that affects the topic at hand is being a cultural steward. What's a cultural steward? A cultural steward is someone who helps employees to navigate the culture. So you're helping the organization and the employee to navigate the culture of the organization. But then, question is,
do the organizations even have that culture?
Well, you're ahead of me on this one. Do they have that culture? They should. Because, you know, it's like when someone says, oh, what's your vision and your mission? It's as basic as you deciding. And what is culture? Culture is the shared values, combined persona. So, for example, I'm an amiable person, if I do say so myself. Yeah. And that's who I am. Now, the question is, when it comes to an organization, what is the organization, or who is the organization? How do they behave? What are the things they hold in common? All of that forms the culture. But then what is HR's position in helping the organization form the culture? First, HR needs to help them to understand. So, for example, your organization, whatever organization it is, what are your values? What do you value? Some people will say, oh, well, excellence, integrity, and all of that. But then the question is, do we conduct ourselves in a way that reflects our values? Are we people of integrity? Do we do work excellently? When we're delayed by the customer, do we tell them, don't worry, we're on our way, when we haven't even left? So all of those things tie into, first off, being able to clearly define what is the organization's value, then how do we live it? And HR's part in helping the organization live that culture. But like you rightly said, you have to balance it. It's a balancing act. But just being an HR person who understands what your role is in the organization where you work, because you might work for a startup, and of course in a startup environment it's like, you know, guys, let's go now.
Yeah.
But then in a mature environment you have now more structured,
just making sure that the process and the system
and things are
is
working.
running. Yeah.
Now if you're an HR person who is not able to understand the organization you work for, what they need from you, then you find a situation where Omolola described that I don't need HR. I
don't even want to relate with them at all.
I haven't interfaced with HR before, but it shouldn't be like that. I felt really bad when you were saying that. It shouldn't be like that, because HR is such a key pillar of having a good organization, being able to run things easily.
Oh my God. I have a lot of questions. Let me leave Omolola to ask a question first.
All right, so I hear you. And
thank you for hearing me.
So from everything you said, I think one major question that is really key in my head is, I don't know how HR works, but I'm thinking, is there like a moral code, a moral compass that tells you, for instance, I mean, the Twitter situation we had the other time, and you know, this is the owner of the business, or these are the top guns in the business, and is there somewhere, is that, you know, HR sees these things, you know, I mean, it shouldn't be like this, but they're your bosses. So is there a point, which was why I'm still reiterating what I had said earlier, which is, which side are you on? Are you on the side of the, because I know ultimately when you're on the side of the employee, it ultimately serves the employer, because a happy employee is a happy business.
Yeah.
But then again, there are some employers that, you know, cross that line. So how do you then balance it? You personally now, you're an HR personnel, you know that, okay, this is wrong, but, you know, have you ever found yourself in a tight spot where you can't decide, should you, can you make a stand, or do you just, you know, turn the other eye because, I mean, they're the top guys?
Okay, that's a fantastic question, Omolola, and I'll answer it from two perspectives. So first off, from an organizational perspective, in order to avoid situations like that from happening and escalating, you need to have a corporate governance procedure. You need to have policies. What does the organization, how do we describe ourselves? How do we solve issues? Because it goes without saying that when you have people working together, you would have people have differing viewpoints. How do you manage it when there are differences? How do you kind of structure even an argument? How do you help people to navigate those emotions at work? If you don't have your policies, it will be anything goes. So you need to have your policies. And so somehow the first thing you probably need to find out is, do we have policies that guide how we treat people? Because definitely people will come in, there is an expected level of performance, people are not performing. How do we address underperformance? Do we attack people personally, or do we focus on the underperformance? How do we help them to navigate their own learning? If they are struggling with their role, how do you put them in roles where they can play to their strengths?
Absolutely.
Or how do you outplace them if you need to outplace them outside of the organization so they can continue their career outside of the organization? So you need to have those policies in place. Then you need to have a way of escalating things. So for example, like I said, how is the organization set up? Is it set up as a one-man business where only one person and what they want goes? If there is an alternative viewpoint, how do they adapt to it? And that's why one of the things that I am especially very excited about is, how do you help owners of businesses? How do you help CEOs? How do you help MDs navigate leadership? Because leadership isn't something you're born with. Leadership is something you develop.
Yeah, of course.
But if you don't have the right exposure, you might not even know that obviously some things are wrong. It's wrong for you to use offensive language on people regardless of their performance. It's wrong for you to do some things. You know, some things are just in the valley of wrong. But within the valley of what is right, how do you know what to do so that you can continue to lead the organization? So it's extremely important that as people who lead organizations, we get exposed to the right learning to help them understand how to lead teams. Just because you're technically sound doesn't mean that you would do well managing a team of people.
Absolutely not.
You could have been, really great at what you do, and because of that you got promoted. But that doesn't mean that you now automatically have people management responsibilities. You simply may not be able to navigate it. But what we find is that people get promoted because of their competence, their technical competence, and no one's looking after them if they have
their
people
managerial skills. Exactly.
And that's something HR can do to help foster a healthier working environment, so that when you're moving people up the ladder, you're supporting them with the right people management capabilities, so that when they get up there, they know how to manage people. Because they will have to deal with people.
Absolutely. You know what, let's go on a very short break. When we come back from the break, we'll continue the conversation. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
For upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bookie November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on PlusTvAfrica.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Now, if you just tuned in, we are having a magazine chat with Olutoyin Williams Edem. Oh Lord, on the role of HR in fostering a healthy work environment. Now, please let us hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. You can also tweet to us at Wayshow Africa 1 with the hashtag Wayshow. So, Bola, Olutoyin, you are so. When I was just listening to you, I was just smiling in my head. I say, come, because it's like you're the opposite of what I have as HR in my head. Like, I believe HR people, like, they're supposed to be very mean, very this, because when I hear stories about HR, almost it's very horrific.
Tell me about
you know, it's very horrific, but you are someone that's really amiable. You are warm, you are everything, and yet you're able to navigate that role perfectly, excellently well. And again, I'll take a cue based on what you said. It depends on what the policy that is on ground. So I can be smiling with you. I say, oh, you're fired. I don't have to be mean. I don't have to be right. I can still smile like a Olutoyi and I tell you that you lost your job.
You just lost your job.
You know. But I was going to say that what's the role of character play, right? The person. What role does character play in? Because when you said you had genuine love for people, I can feel that love, right? And I believe that, you know, HR is supposed to be like the mother hen in the company, where everybody, you know, you would when it's time to reprimand, you reprimand. When it's time to, you know, to show love, you would show love and all of that. So how do we manage that? Because it's so critical, and I think not even most companies, even the HR personnel themselves, do not even understand the power that they wield in the organizational success. So how do we start to correct that gap, right? How do we get it? Now I see you racing around.
No, because your question is hydra-headed.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it is.
Your question is hydra-headed. So are we right now discussing what sort of competencies a good HR person should have? Are we discussing HR's understanding of their power?
It's everything.
It's everything, but then we'll have to take it from one
somewhere,
angle.
Yeah.
First off, I mean, HR profession, like every other profession, like you meet some doctors and they have a terrible bedside manner. As in, they'll just say, madam, you have cancer. You're going to die.
Wow.
And they're not even trying to, you know, sort of help you navigate how you're feeling. So, to be honest, I'm not perfect. I have my moments. And people who meet me in my moments will be like, oh my gosh, she's a dragon. But then, over and beyond that, try to be human about being dragony. And that's because you have to understand, see, there is a hard part of the job that people would naturally shy away from. So, for example, some people, they are very averse to confrontation, averse to, you know, talking about an issue. What you have to do is you need to help with the appropriate learning. No one's born being able to, you know, just solve problems and you're just solving problems like you're Superman. No one's like that. They cultivate it. But they can only cultivate it if they have a level of awareness where you know you have a gap. Unfortunately, the thing with level of awareness is that many people are very unaware. They are unaware of the things they are doing very poorly. And in fact, when you bring it up to them, they'll be like, you know what, that's how I am. I mean, that's how I am. That's my personality. No. That's bad behavior. That's bad behavior. That's something that needs to be corrected. But to my last point, it can get really tough holding senior management accountable. Because when you look at it in the grand scheme of an organization, HR is a unit. Yes, they have so much power and influence, but they are still not the last decision makers. So how then do you learn to use your influence in the organization? And trust me, we all have influence in the organization, regardless of our level in the organization.
Sure.
How do you leverage your influence for good? Because eventually, if you have to have a situation where there's a senior person who's misbehaved, and you need to have that hard conversation, how do you have it? Do you as an HR person, do you have the competence? Does the organization foster such an environment where we can have these hard conversations?
Sure.
And that's where we need to get to. So back to my earlier point, it's in the setup. Have you got the policies? Are you driving those policies? Are you implementing them? When there is an incident, how do you kick in corporate governance so that things don't escalate? Things don't escalate and get out of hand and someone is being abused or is being abusive. How do you checkmate? And there are always 3-4 sides to a story. So you have to. And then, you know, it's very easy to get carried away, but you have to come back to basics to say, what exactly has happened here? Has our policies been tried? What exactly are we dealing with here? And how do you attend to those things quite unemotionally? Because you have to be able to be objective in discussing what the challenges are. But there is a part to play, and everyone has a part to play in that. So line managers, supervisors, employees themselves, how do you address that is communal effort? How do you address grievances in a very constructive way? Because to be quite honest, a lot of people have a huge gap in emotional intelligence. So for example, if I'm giving you feedback on your work, some people get extremely defensive. And you're wondering, see, I'm just talking about the work. I know that there are some people who be like, oh, I'm not talking about the work now, I'm talking about you. But in this instance, it's about the work. And I'm saying this piece of work is substandard. I'm not saying you're substandard.
No, but also, is it not, don't they work hand in hand? Sometimes your personality plays out on your job, right? So are you not allowed to still talk about the person, you know?
Now, in talking about the person...
Or in the workplace is a no-no?
No. So in talking about the person, and this is where your sensitivities have to kick in, your professionalism has to kick in. If there is work to be done, I want to assume in favor of the organization that there are KPIs that have been determined ahead of time. So you have a job, you have a role, the role has a job description. The job description has a KPI. The KPI hopefully is aligned to organizational strategy, but that's a separate topic entirely. Now, when you are reviewing the person's performance, you're reviewing their performance against their KPIs. You're not reviewing Omolola as Omolola.
It's based on her KPI.
You are reviewing Omolola based on her job description, based on her KPIs. Omolola, you have something to say.
I have something to say.
Please say it so you can rest.
So for me, I know that, you know, professionalism needs to come in.
Okay.
But let's not dispute the fact that in the work environment, there's a lot of people take things personal.
Personal things play out. I mean, personal whatever plays out.
There's this, I have a very healthy relationship with my team lead. And whenever we have any squabble, we always just tell each other, it's not personal. Like, you always just know this is not personal, it's just the work. But with some people, it is personal. So my question now is, in the case that an HR personnel maybe, I mean, when it becomes personal, then it's a bit hard to be objective, because you don't know if this person is being mean to you, if are they attacking you. You know, sometimes you feel that way, like, is this person attacking me, because you feel some kind of energy coming from this person.
Absolutely.
So this brings me to my question, which is, who sanctions HR? Who sanctions HR?
Your policies. So for example, even if an HR, your policy supersedes everybody and everything. It's your policy. If your policy, so for example, within the HR team, something is going wrong, the policies would have to kick in. Obviously, the person who will now apply it will be someone else other than the HR person, because the HR person is in the mix of it.
So if I have a problem with an HR personnel, for instance, who do I report to?
You would more likely, so the way organizations should be set up is that you have your own line manager. The HR person is definitely, maybe not, because again, it goes back to the setup. Is it a one-man business where you have the HR as the most senior person? Is the HR the wife of the MD? Those are instances as well. So it goes back to the setup. It goes back to the setup of the organization. But as much as possible, there should be differentiation. So for example, you have your line manager, you escalate to your line manager that, oh, this is the issue you have with HR, they are not responding to you. And your line manager, who should obviously maybe be at the same level of seniority as the HR person, would be able to pick it up on a pair-to-pair to say, what's going on with you? We're having this challenge, you're not responding to us. When that fails, then you can escalate to the MD. But of course, you know, we can sit here and paint 1,001 different mishaps that are happening within the organization. So let's bring it back, Omolola. Well, let's bring it back.
Yes,
we're bringing it back.
Let's bring it back. Let's bring it back to basics. And the basics is that, one, you need to be aware of the organization you are working in.
I was coming there.
You need to be aware.
I was coming there.
You need to be aware.
The biggest challenge that I think that we've had with these issues of HR, you don't see these things in multinationals. You don't see, it might play out, but it is not as bad. Again, don't forget that all this conversation, where it sparked from was startups. You know, one-man business. So maybe we should bring it back home.
Yeah.
How do we foster a healthy work relationship
in a startup?
Where you know that, yes, so
that's a dissertation right there.
Are we planning to see the book?
That's the dissertation right
there. We'll come and support when you're developing the project. You know, it's a lot of work, but because I mean, you hit the nail on the head when you said that the three things you should look out: the phase, the size, and the setup. Right?
Yep.
That phase, when they're at that startup stage, you know, where it seems like I am the financial controller,
I am
everything.
everything. I am
So
the everything.
how do you foster? Because you have to start from somewhere.
Well, you don't ask the easy questions. If you had told me,
this was what I was.
I would have brought my professors. But I mean, see, that's a really difficult conversation to. That's a really difficult conversation to have and a difficult question to answer, because if you look at the way the startup ecosystem in Nigeria is, there is money. There is money in the ecosystem. People can raise funds. So you have a fantastic idea, you can raise funds. And maybe we can pioneer something. And some of the things that I think about in my quiet time is, if you have a VC funding a startup or a PE firm funding a startup, one of the things that we should actively begin to look at, I mean, in the wake of all of that Twitter war and all the Twitter incidences, is what is the level of the founder's leadership capability? Yes, you have a fantastic idea. You're planning to sell water in a glass. You've identified the market. We have the funding. You can go to
punched all the numbers.
We punched all the numbers, and this is a good business to go. But then forget that people are the heart of the business. And then, who are you? Have you got the right experience? And if you look at the average age of startup entrepreneurs, they're probably in their early 30s. There's a lot of boom towards that. They're in their early 30s. They haven't done enough of structured work to understand how organizations run sustainably. So yes, that you have a business idea, you have funding for it, doesn't mean you automatically have a sustainable business. There is still the ability to bring in the right structures, to have the right experience to guide you. And that's why, and I dare say I'm just pioneering this, that maybe one of the prerequisites should be that you should have worked for a bit.
Or
you should understand how the organization functions.
Or they can come to your firm.
Yes. I mean, again, because again, you have to look at what is feasible to implement. Or they can say, you know what, a portion of these funds has to go into you getting business development support, consultants to help you. Because I mean, if you're 30 or 20 something years, how much work experience you have? Maybe you even started your business straight out of school, out of NYSC. So you don't know what it is to run a business.
Yeah.
But then what I hear some VC firms do, and what they do is that they would get you a coach to work with you.
So that's where I was going. So can we start to demand that some of these startups...
Well, this is me looking at you like, who is demanding? Are you the one demanding? Who is going to make the demand?
I was just thinking, because just imagine. So I might not have the experience, I might not have the expertise, I might not have, but if we begin to place that tiny demand that as part of understanding and building a successful business.
Absolutely.
Why don't we, partner with
some VC firms actually put it as part of the conditions for
because if you lose that, say if I invest money in you and all your workers they run away, you're going to lose the money, so you lose anyway.
You lose anyway. There is a very strong business case for, I mean, looking at the age and the experience, because these are very complex factors. But look at the age, the experience. The past work experience of the person in corporate, because it's not just enough to say I have an idea. It is how do you build that. Then again, maybe you can look at the constitution of the team. So you have maybe the CTO who is a young guy. You have the ideas guy who is also a young guy. How do you bring on board other people who have experience running organizations? They've seen how it should be. So you're bringing in an experience.
So you don't necessarily have to have that experience. You can just bring...
Absolutely.
That's why people must get to that point where they consult.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's take some comments, Omolola. We have a long one there.
All right, so quite long. Good evening, my dear beautiful sisters of What Are You Saying? #Ways. Considering the role of human resource manager, it is very easy, but people misunderstand it because they lack knowledge and understanding of it. When you have a good HRM, that is human resource manager, that understands and has the idea and sense of an establishment, that business will progress and blossom. people should not see HR the wrong way. A good HRM adds spice to any company and establishment. God bless you, my dear beautiful sister Olutoyin. Thumbs up to you. Also, a good HRM is not harsh, but has a vision and goal towards building an establishment. My name is Daniel Ilo, Ways regular fan.
Thank you, Daniel. So we have I'm happy that Ade is finally watching us again. He lives in the UK, so YouTube is working. So good evening, ladies. Please don't put fear on Omolola. Our amiable guest is well loaded with more to offer. Yes, we have to bring her back. But time is not friendly, like you already know. But do have a great weekend. Thank you so much. Yes, so you, Olutoyin, you have to promise our audience that you're going to become a regular. The eye is dancing. You know, because I mean, you just make things so easy. I like to talk to people that make life easy for me. Like, so you understand the issues, and you brought, you know, solutions in the simplest form, right? So if we want to find, like, you know, in a way to like wrap up the conversation, if you had something like a counsel for startups, especially because that's where the biggest challenges are when it comes to healthy workplace, you know, what would you just give as a counsel as we wrap up the conversation?
I would say that if you're a startup founder, you have a fantastic idea, kudos to you. You've raised money, kudos to you as well. Please surround yourself with people who have the experience to help your organization thrive. So beyond getting the money, put together a team that have succeeded in doing this in their own separate organizations, and then bring them on board and allow them to do the work. Please, may I allow that for the people at the back? Allow them to do the work. Yeah, because again, it can be quite frustrating when you get a really senior person and you don't allow them to do the work. That can be quite frustrating. But allow them to do the work. Let them help you put the structures in place, and you would find a much, much, much sustainable organization. And that would decrease, you know, all of this.
Just one last thing. So how
Lola, this would be the like can you
please one more?
One more. So it's just cost. You know, because some of these startups, they feel like, it's going to be expensive to get a Olutoyin to come like consult for me for my...
Sis, I ain't cheap. I do not intend to be cheap.
So they need to understand that it's...
No, but experience... No, so if you think about it, and this is that question all of the time, which is that, do you want to spend money hiring someone who already has the experience? It comes down to it, even for a salesperson. So think about it. Regular business, you need a customer service person. And you're like, oh no, let's just get this girl out of secondary school. We'll tell her what to do. And then a customer comes and says, you know what? I'm going to kill you people on the streets of Twitter. And this guy says, madam, do your worst. There goes your inexperience playing out. So rather, you should try and invest money in getting people who have tons of experience dealing with irate customers, so that when the person says, I'm dragging you on the street, I say, madam, please don't do that. You know what, we'll throw in a 10% for you. How about I help you with this? And that's what you need, because you have the idea, but you can't be everywhere.
Absolutely.
You need to empower people, hire the right people, empower them, and let them get to work.
On that note, Olutoyin will be back. But thank you so much. I had a fantastic conversation. It's a good way to wrap my weekend. Thank you so much, Olutoyin.
I had a good time as well. Thank you for having me. And thanks for being patient. I know you had to chase me.
Oh, I know.
I apologize. I apologize.
See, it was worth the wait. Thank you, Omolola. We had a fantastic conversation. Now, before we go, do ensure you follow us on Instagram at PlusTvAfrica. You can interact with us further, drop a comment, and more importantly, follow all our engagements on social media, like, share, and invite your families and friends to watch and follow the conversation. Now, if you missed today's quote, here it is again. Train people well enough so they can leave. Treat them well enough so they don't want to leave. This was actually by Richard Branson. We'll see you guys live on Monday as we bring another great conversation to your screen. Enjoy.
Increase the reach of your events or business services. To advertise on Plus TV Africa, please call 0906 0005719 or 0909 040 8408, or send an email to marketing@PlusTvAfrica.com. Plus TV Africa. Big stories live here.
And now, let's join ace broadcaster Mamode Akuga as he takes us inside the Niger Delta.
Hello out there and welcome. It's Inside the Niger Delta, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region. I'm your regular host, Mamode Akuga. Today's lineup is a mixed reel of politics and development in the Niger Delta, and we kickstart with a report on the current state of the East-West Road reconstruction project as the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs hands over its supervision to the Ministry of Works and Housing. We take a look on efforts being made by Honorable Fred Agbedi to attract development to Sagbama Ikirimo Federal Constituency through his constituency projects. Also into this package, we take a look at the raging controversy on zoning in Bayelsa West Senatorial District as incumbent Senator Henry Seriaka Dixon finally declares his intention to seek re-election in 2023. We will, in the course of the program, bring you the position of Senior Pastor of Salvation Ministries, Pastor David Ibiomie, on how Nigerians should vote in the 2023 general elections to enthrone good governance in the country. Inside the Niger Delta, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region, will be back after this timeout. Don't go away.
Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, making a difference.
Welcome back. It's Inside the Niger Delta, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region. Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Senator Gospel Akpabio, says officials in his ministry are available to give all necessary technical details in the ongoing reconstruction and dualization of the East-West Road to their counterparts in the Federal Ministry of Works, which is now responsible for its supervision in line with a presidential directive. Senator Akpabio gave the assurance during a formal handover of supervision of the road project to Minister of Works, Babatunde Raji Fashola, recently in Abuja.
In October last year, a delegation of Ogoni leaders met with President Muhammadu Buhari at the State House in Abuja and demanded that supervision of ongoing construction and dualization of the East-West Road be transferred from the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs to the Presidency to facilitate its speedy completion. Some 5 months after the visit, President Buhari directed the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing to take over supervision of the East-West Road project. Speaking recently at a formal handover to the Ministry of Works and Housing, Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Senator Godswill Akpabio, observed that under his supervision, substantial progress had been achieved on the East-West Road reconstruction project, which is currently at 80% completion stage. Contract for the reconstruction of the East-West Road was first awarded by the government of President Olusegun Obasanjo in 2006. In 2009, the project supervision was transferred to the Ministry of Niger Delta to ensure its speedy completion. However, the project was stalled for many years as a result of inadequate funding. When in August 2017 he was appointed Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Senator Akpabio gave the East-West Road reconstruction project priority attention in recognition of its significance to the economic development of the Niger Delta region. With the release of 19.67 billion in 2020 to recommence work on the East-West Road project, the Ministry of Niger Delta was able to achieve a milestone on sections 1 to 4 of the East-West Road, which spans across Efurum in Delta State and Oron in Akwa Ibom State. In trying to